Begin with the latest on the war between Israel and Hamas.
This morning, Israel is intensifying its assault on southern Gaza, fueling an increasingly dire situation for Palestinian civilians. Israeli officials described the fighting Tuesday as the, quote, most intense day since the beginning of the ground operation. Soldiers operating in the heart of southern Gaza's main city, Khan Younis, engaged in house-to-house gunfights. As the assault widens, so does the humanitarian crisis. The United Nations says more than 80% of Gaza's population has been displaced since the start of the war. Gazan health officials say the death toll has now climbed past 16,000. With food, water, and medicine in short supply, the World Health Organization says the situation is getting worse by the hour. For more, we're joined by NBC News foreign correspondent Raf Sanchez in Jerusalem. Raf, good morning. So the United Nations is warning a, quote, hellish scenario is about to unfold in southern Gaza. Israel says this is the most intense fighting yet as they push into the city of Khan Younis. What's the situation on the ground right now?
Well, Joe, good morning. I think hellish is an apt description right now. As you said, we are seeing very, very intense fighting street by street in the city of Khan Younis right now. And the hospitals down in the south of Gaza are overwhelmed. Our team has been at the Al Nasser hospital. It's one of the main medical facilities down there. They say there is just a never-ending flow of wounded, dead, dying, arriving, trying to get treatment there. And as well as the Hamas leaders, who Israel says are hiding in Khan Younis, there are hundreds of thousands of Palestinian civilians, many of whom fled from the north, and they are facing unbelievably painful choices right now, literally life and death decisions, trying to keep their families safe. I just got off the phone with a man named Mohammed. He's a Palestinian British scientist who actually went to Gaza in mid-September. He is now in Khan Younis. He says they are hearing artillery falling all around them, and they are having to decide. There's 30 people in his family staying in a 3-bedroom apartment. They're having to decide, do they go south and try to get to safety? Do they stay in their home and risk being encircled by Israeli troops? And he says at this point, going south would be a huge leap into the unknown. They don't have enough cars to get the entire family south. They're going to have no shelter when they get down there. They don't know if they're going to have any access to water. And those decisions being faced by Palestinian families all across the south right now. The Israeli military says it is putting in place temporary pauses in the fighting at certain hours to allow people to get out, to allow humanitarian aid to get in. But the question we were hearing again and again and again from Palestinian civilians is, where are we supposed to go? Guys.
Raf, also yesterday, members of Israel's war cabinet met with families of Israeli hostages. Of course, one of the other big stories here. The meeting has been described, though, as chaotic by at least one person who attended. What can you tell us about this?
Yeah, Savannah, this was a fiery encounter by all accounts. There is a lot of frustration among the families of the remaining 130 or so hostages inside Gaza. They feel that time is running out, that their loved ones are sick. Many of them were wounded on October 7th, that they are not in good health, and that time is ticking by, and sooner or later it's going to be too late. And they feel that the Israeli government is not doing enough at this stage to get their loved ones out. Remember, we have not seen any Israeli hostages come out of Gaza since last Thursday when that ceasefire collapsed. They want the Israeli government to restart negotiations. They want to see people coming out again. And one of the big frustrations is they feel like they know what the price is going to be. Hamas is going to demand thousands of senior Palestinian militants be released from Israeli jails, and the families are saying, do it. Let them out. Give Hamas what they want. Bring our loved ones back. This can't be about politics. This has got to be about the hostages.
And so, Raf, you're touching on this, but tell us the latest about negotiations at the moment. Is there any communication between the two sides on this?
There's nothing official. That's according to the White House. We had seen a sort of formal process playing out in Qatar in the weeks leading up to that week-long ceasefire. You had officers from the Israeli intelligence agency, the Mossad, sitting down with Qatari officials who were then shuttling across to talk to Hamas officials inside of Qatar. We're not seeing that formal process going on anymore. The Israelis have left. It's very possible that there are behind-the-scenes talks going on. Qatar says it is still trying to mediate another ceasefire. But right now, there's no expectation that we're going to see one today, tomorrow, or anytime soon.
Raf, a spokesperson for the State Department, Matt Miller, said that Israel isn't doing enough to get humanitarian aid into Gaza. Real quick, how's Israel responding to those criticisms? And is the U.S. exerting any pressure to try and get more aid in?
So the U.S. is calling every day for more aid to go in. The Israelis say they are allowing more aid, but we are just seeing these vast shortages. This man, Mohammed, I spoke to, he said they've been struggling to get flour to bake bread. They haven't been able to find eggs in a month. And we've been seeing people breaking into UN warehouses searching for food because they're so desperate. And it's a dynamic you see in a lot of war zones, that even if there is food on the shelves, often now the prices are so high that people can't afford to buy it. So without fuel to supply the trucks to distribute the aid, a lot of it is just piling up, and it is not reaching the people who needs it. Guys.
Raf Sanchez. Raf, thank you so much.
Well, this morning, investigators in Israel are revealing eyewitness and victim accounts of women brutally sexually assaulted and killed during the October 7th terror attack. President Biden called the accounts appalling, a warning some of the images and stories you are about to hear are graphic. NBC's Hala Garani reports.
On October 7th, Hamas attacked within Israel's borders with a wave of terror, murdering over 1,200 people, including entire families. And Israeli investigators say there is growing evidence that Hamas unleashed another kind of horror against women.
Something so horrific happened, and the world should know.
We spoke to Mirit Ben Meir, who's helping lead the investigation of allegations of repeated rape and sexual assault by Hamas.
Where does your investigation stand?
We have eyewitnesses that are slowly arriving and giving testimonies.
Disturbing accounts about October 7th, including this woman describing how a Hamas terrorist, quote, laid a woman down. He is raping her, then they pass her on to another person, telling investigators the woman was alive and bleeding. Another chilling eyewitness account from Younis Adon, telling the Sunday Times he was at the music festival where Hamas slaughtered hundreds of Israeli concert goers. He hid under dead bodies, saying he saw a, quote, beautiful woman with the face of an angel and 8 or 10 of the fighters beating and raping her. When they finished, they were laughing, and the last one shot her in the head, he said. Hamas has denied committing sexual crimes against women. Israeli officials say the investigation is challenging because most victims were killed. But among the evidence seen by NBC News, graphic photos of women's bodies with obvious signs of sexual assault, including some naked from the waist down.
Some of the terrorists that are interrogated, they're saying that this was happening and this was done.
First responders describing naked female bodies tied to beds. NBC News also reviewing this Hamas document that Israeli officials say was carried by Hamas militants on October 7th with instructions on how to say, take off your pants in Hebrew. The UN facing backlash for its response, some deemed too slow, including this protest Monday. Critics blasting the Secretary General for taking 7 weeks to publicly call for an investigation of Hamas and sexual violence. And the agency UN Women for not putting out a statement until last Friday. The agency telling us in part, within days of the horrific attacks, UN Women began offering concrete support to the UN Commission of Inquiry, which is investigating these matters.
We feel like the world has turned their backs.
Miriam Schleer runs a rape crisis center in Tel Aviv and says Israel's critics are downplaying, even dismissing, alleged Hamas sexual violence.
You say that people can be opposed to what's happening to Palestinians,
Absolutely.
but at the same time they need
Absolutely.
to be
You can,
sympathetic.
yeah, I mean, there's two things that don't have to do with each other. I feel for the suffering of Palestinian civilians. It has nothing to do with the fact that there can never, ever, ever be an excuse for rape.
And President Joe Biden at a fundraiser condemned the, quote, sexual violence by Hamas, saying the world cannot look away, and adding that these acts must be condemned without equivocation and without exception.
All right, Hala Barani, thank you so much.
At a fiery hearing on Capitol Hill, the presidents of 3 elite universities were facing tough questions about the rise in hate and anti-Semitism on their campuses. NBC News senior national correspondent Stephanie Gosk has the story.
On Capitol Hill, the presidents of 3 top schools, MIT, UPenn, and Harvard, grilled over a spike in anti-Semitism on their campuses.
Your university is a hotbed of it.
At the center of the hearing, tension over how to protect both student safety and free speech while combating anti-Semitism and Islamophobia.
Disagreements about the conflict in the Middle East should never escalate to threats of violence.
Harvard's president was asked about pro-Palestinian demonstrators calling for intifada on her campus.
Can you not say here that it is against the code of conduct at Harvard?
We embrace a commitment to free expression, even of views that are objectionable, offensive, hateful. It's when that speech crosses into conduct that violates our policies.
In recent weeks, a number of Jewish students have told NBC News they worry for their safety.
Why today a Jewish student is afraid to walk to the library at night.
Congressman, let me start by saying I'm devastated to hear that, and the safety and security of our campus and our students in particular is my top concern.
All 3 presidents are facing criticism for their response to hate rhetoric on campus. Each walked through new plans to combat anti-Semitism.
Staff here at UPenn say they've received anti-Semitic emails and hateful slogans were projected on buildings. Now there's additional security at religious centers and a new anti-Semitism task force.
Editors of UPenn's student newspaper spoke with us on campus.
I think the important part is to have respectful discourse.
People do feel, on both sides, kind of feel like the space for open discussion and discourse has been lost.
The presidents testifying on Capitol Hill told Congress they're fighting hard to get it back. Stephanie Gosk, NBC News, Philadelphia.
Breaking news this morning, at least six people are dead and 2 officers hurt after a shooting spree in Texas. Investigators in Austin say a suspect is now in custody. Officials say an officer was shot in the leg outside of a high school just before 11 a.m. Tuesday. Investigators say the same suspect then shot and killed 2 people in a South Austin neighborhood. Then last night, investigators were called to a burglary scene where another officer was shot and 2 more bodies were discovered. Investigators say they finally arrested the suspect after a high-speed chase ended in a crash. That suspect is also believed to be tied to another double homicide near San Antonio.
And in Arlington, Virginia, police say a man whose house exploded in a massive ball of fire this week was killed in the explosion. Now we're learning more about 56-year-old James Yu and the events leading up to his death. NBC News correspondent Tom Costello has the latest.
Neighbors in Arlington, Virginia feared this was going to end badly. Just after 8 o'clock Monday night, it did. A massive explosion lifting an entire home off its foundation. It started in the afternoon when police responded to reports that a man inside had fired a flare gun more than 30 times. That led to a standoff with a SWAT team armed with a search warrant. Then the enormous explosion that shook homes for blocks.
We need all fire apparatus so we can get the house that's exploded, I believe.
I thought it was actually probably either a car crash or a plane crash.
Police identified the suspect as 56-year-old James Yu, who several neighbors say acted erratically, covering his windows in aluminum foil. Police also confirm he posted online conspiracy theories.
The suspect was inside the residence at the time of the explosion, and he is presumed at this point to be deceased.
Thomas Joyce lived next door and says he wasn't surprised by the massive blast.
He was not a stable individual.
Police say Yu had no known criminal record, but had a history of filing unsubstantiated complaints with the FBI. Police still searching for a cause of the explosion. Police and the FBI say this was an isolated case. There is no ongoing threat to the community. 10 homes were damaged, though thankfully no one else was seriously injured. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Tom. Turning now to the race for the White House. For the fourth time this year, it's debate night in the Republican race for that nomination. 4 candidates vying for the nomination will take part in the final primary debate ahead of the Iowa caucuses. The debate's taking place in Alabama.
Yeah, the candidates who qualified are Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy, and Chris Christie. The GOP frontrunner, of course, that's former President Trump, will once again skip the debate. He's going to hold a private fundraiser in Florida. For more on this, let's bring in NBC News correspondent Shaquille Brewster. He joins us from Tuscaloosa, where this is going down. Hey, Shaq, good morning. Good to see you. So this is one of the final opportunities, of course, for the candidates to make their pitch to voters before things really get underway. Iowa caucus is just next month in January. So tell us what's at stake tonight. Who's facing the biggest pressure here?
Yeah, look, when you look at the dynamics of this race, it really is about a battle for second place. But that battle has only grown more competitive in the past weeks and months and since the previous debates in this race. You look at Nikki Haley, for example. She has seen a rise in polling, especially when you look at some of those early primary and caucus stakes. She also has been securing some major Republican endorsements from the donor community. So she wants to build on that momentum and show that she is truly a force in this race. And that's momentum that has come at the expense of Ron DeSantis. You've seen his polling numbers slide a little bit. He wants to show that he's still a force in this race, that he still has something to prove, that he has something to show and offer Republican voters. And you also have Vivek Ramaswamy, Chris Christie. They have big presence on the debate stage. We'll see what kind of influence they have as they also try to make a name for themselves. You know, you talk about this being a race that so many people are watching. This is possibly the last debate before the Iowa caucuses. Each of these candidates want to have some sort of moment. It's not clear that they'll get it.
So, Shaq, throughout the primary season, the candidates have essentially been fighting for second place to be the Trump alternative. Polls show the former president maintaining a sizable lead against the field for months. But beyond Christie, could we see the participants take aim at him, or are they going to keep focusing on each other and the current president?
I like that you say beyond Christie, because that is what is to be expected. He has very clearly made this about Donald Trump. You can expect him to continue to attack Donald Trump on the debate stage. Now, the open question, as you mentioned, is whether or not any of the other candidates will take the opportunity to go after the front runner on the debate stage. And that really is an open question. One thing that you can almost guarantee is that you'll hear them hit Donald Trump for not being on that debate stage. We've heard that that line of attack come before on previous debate stages. Whether or not they go after him on policy and specific positions, you will likely get some of that, but how much of that you'll get, that remains to be seen.
Speaking of the front runner, Shaq, I mean, we know Trump took part in a Fox News town hall. He's also going to hold a fundraiser tonight. This is the first time we're not seeing any real counter programming against the debate from him. Walk us through that.
Yeah, no live event tonight, although he had that town hall in Iowa yesterday. Look, he feels very comfortable in this race. And, you know, our Iowa Embed talked to some of the folks, some of the Iowa voters who were lining up for his town hall yesterday. Just listen to some of the conversations that were had there. And that gives you a sense of the confidence that Donald Trump is feeling.
I enjoy his honesty. And if, you know, they say he's a liar, but I think of all the people that are, you know, offered, he's the most honest of them.
He's more of a businessman. All these other people from D.C., the politicians, they scratch each other's back.
Because he has a good economic track record with the way the country's going right now. You know, everything costs more. When he was president, you know, everything was a little bit cheaper. We were a little bit safer, I believe.
That can give you a sense of why he doesn't feel the need to have some sort of live counter-programming this time around, though. You know, Donald Trump, he will likely comment on the debate in some form, but he did say to one of our campaign embeds just yesterday that he will not be watching the debate, he'll not be tuning in, and that's likely because of that fundraiser he'll be having.
All right, Shaq Brewster, I have a feeling we will be seeing a lot of you over the next 24 hours. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. After the debate, be sure to check out our Meet the Press special coverage for more analysis. You can watch it tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern. That'll be right here on NBC News Now, also streaming over on Peacock.
Let's get the latest on all that rainy weather in the Pacific Northwest.
Meteorologist Angie Lassman is here with us this morning. Hey, Angie, good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. Really impressive rainfall over the past 24 hours in portions of the northwestern United States. And because of that, we still have flood alerts that are up right now. 8 million people impacted from Washington into Oregon and into portions of North Northern California, where you see that bright green, there is a flood watch in effect. We've got more rain on the way, and it's currently still raining in a lot of spots across this region, too. From Spokane Valley all the way out to Mount Rainier, we've got Portland, Salem, Eugene, all dealing with the rain this morning, and more to come as we get through the rest of the day today. Here's that system working closer to the coast and eventually bringing more rain, more snow across this region. We will see some of that snow developing across the Sierra Mountains. It won't be incredible amounts of snow, but still impactful nonetheless. By the time we get into tomorrow, that next system works its way a little closer to the coast. That first system will work its way a little closer to the northern Rockies. So that means snow there, and it means more scattered showers and a little bit of snow as well across Washington, Oregon, and California, too. Now, the rainfall totals coming in anywhere from 2 to 3 inches for the higher spots. Of course, we could have localized amounts a little higher than that. And we've already got saturated grounds. We've seen really impressive river flooding yesterday. And I have a feeling through the day today we'll see more of that. But a lot of the rain is going to be focused a little farther south than what it was yesterday. So that's one positive, I suppose. Now, as we get into Friday and beyond, we'll start to see this next storm system working its way from west to east. Friday, it works into the Rockies. We'll see some snow there, and then it kind of redevelops over portions of the plains, bringing rain to folks in Kansas City, Wichita, and then spreading that rain across much of the east, from the Midwest down to Texas. We'll see some rain and even a little bit of snow in the northern portions of that, guys.
All right. Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.